This is AM 1570, WFTU, Riverhead, New York.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
To the second baseman, Cano. The Yankees are back on top. World champions for the 27th time.
All right, I am back, and I know it's been a while. It's been 3 weeks since the last time I was on the air, and a lot has happened, and I have a lot to get to today. And you are listening to This Week in Sports, and I am your host, Matt O'Leary, on your radio home of Five Towns College, 1570 AM, WFTU, Riverhead. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the best time of the year. Baseball is back. And even though it didn't feel like it on Monday, when the Mets opened up their season, March 31st, and I woke up happy because my Mets are back, and we haven't lost the game yet. I wake up, I open the blinds to let in the light of opening day, and I look outside my window, and what do I see? Snow. It's snowing on opening day. Could you believe it? But that didn't hurt my spirits, because heading into the game, the Mets are 34-18 in their history in opening day games. So I'm pumped, and I think we got this. So, on my way to school, which took me an hour and a half, by the way, on a commute that usually takes me about 30 minutes. I listened to the Boomer and Carton show on WFAN like every other morning. And in typical Mets fashion, they start off the season, with a bit of a predicament. They announced that there was a problem with the opening day lineup. And there was going to be a press conference saying what the problem actually was. But for a good 10 to 15 minutes, we weren't aware of what the problem actually was. And one of them wasn't so bad. Daniel Murphy was not in the lineup for opening day because his wife went into labor. Very happy occasion, of course, for the Daniel Murphy family. But it definitely hurt the Mets lineup-wise. But understandably, he's got to be with his family, and I will get into that later about my opinion on the paternity leave. And the other was that Chris Young would not be in the opening day lineup because his injury was flaring up. But I'm still thinking, whatever. And Andrew Brown's going to get the start now in left field. And at least we can have Eric Young Jr. and Juan Lagares in the lineup at the same time, which I think gives the Mets the best lineup. And Eric Young Jr., of course, playing second base, filling in for Daniel Murphy. He's pretty much the Mets' jack of all trades. Played almost any outfield position, and also able to play second base. It's always good to have someone like him coming off the bench for you. And also a very good leadoff hitter. Led the National League in stolen bases last season, and is really the only leadoff batter that the Mets actually have, in my opinion. They also could potentially use Juan Lagares, but I would prefer him batting second, and I will eventually get into a lineup that I think would be fitting for the Mets. But Andrew Brown got his first start as a New York Met, and his first opening day start in his career. And I'm going to be honest with you, I did not know too much about Andrew Brown before Monday, but Mets fans everywhere found out about him early in his first opening day start. Let's take a listen to what Andrew Brown did.
Two and two now to Brown. And Andrew launches one. Deep left center field. Headed back toward the wall. It's out of here! Andrew Brown making the opening day start. Hits a 3-run homer. And the Mets are out to a 3-0 first inning lead.
And that, of course, was Gary Cohen on the call on the Mets TV home SNY. And it starts off. They start off the first inning. They're up 3-0 off of Steven Strasburg. The guy hits a 3-run homer off Steven Strasburg, a phenom, and I'm not even sure who the guy really is. And I'm thinking it's deja vu back to last year. Colin Cowgill on opening day hits a grand slam. Hopefully, Andrew Brown won't turn into what Colin Cowgill was with the Mets. He was pretty much a one-hit wonder for about a week, and they ended up just parting ways with Cowgill, and he really didn't hold much significance. But for the first week of the 2013 season, Colin Cowgill was the talk of the town for the New York Mets. And then the second inning, Dylan G gives up an absolute bomb to Adam LaRoche, a 2-run homer, and it cuts the Mets lead now just to a slim 3-2. And it was not one of those, just barely out of Yankee Stadium, because it was Shea Bridge power right there. But then Dylan G settles in quite nicely and retires the next 11 in a row. And I originally didn't think that I wanted Dylan G to start opening day. I think that I would have rathered Zach Wheeler, and Zach Wheeler was very open about wanting to start on opening day. And I think they should have gave him the opportunity. I think from the fan standpoint, that's the guy that they would like to see. The other option was Bartolo Colon, and he made his first start the other day in the Mets' second game, which I will eventually get into. But as a fan of the Mets, they definitely want to see Zach Wheeler get the start, because he is the future of the team. Every year the Mets talk about, just wait till next year. That seems to be the Mets' motto. And Zach Wheeler is that next year guy, because when Harvey comes back, they're hoping that with another year under his belt, Zach Wheeler and Harvey would be good at the top of the rotation. And of course, Jonathan Neese, who started last year on opening day, seemed like the prime candidate to get the opening day start, but of course injury did not allow that, and the Mets and Terry Collins decided to go with Dylan G, and it seemed he's pitched pretty well for the most part. I will give him that. He definitely pitched pretty well. So now it's 4-2, heading into the 7th inning, and G starts to struggle a little bit, and they have to pull him. But it's okay. It's all right. He got through 6 innings, 6+ innings. You can't really ask for too much better from a guy like Dylan G. He's a guy who needed a mental coach because he thought he harped on the negative too much. And when he gave up that home run on the broadcast on SNY, they were talking about how the home run didn't seem to phase him, and he settled in quite nicely. As I said, he retired 11 people in a row after that, And it's just that Dylan G seems to have changed and matured a little bit more. He doesn't get rattled as easily, as you could obviously see. And it turns out that, okay, I think Terry Collins made a good decision in starting Dylan G for opening day, looking back after the fact. Previous, like I stated, that I would have liked Zach Wheeler, but he didn't pitch too good yesterday. Anyway, this is where it all falls apart and goes into typical Mets fashion from this point on. Like I said, it's the seventh inning. G is struggling, so they bring in Scott Rice. And Rice can't find the strike zone. And it's bad. It is ugly. That is walking guys left and right. The bases are loaded, walking in runs. You can't have that as a professional team. You should not. You have to be better than that. And at this point, I'm watching the game from work, and I work at Play It Again Sports, which is a sporting goods store, clearly. And they're all laughing because I am so into this game, and customers are in the store, but everyone's watching the Mets implode just like every other single season. It is bad. But then the Mets bring in Valverde, and he comes in and gets a huge strikeout to get out to escape the inning of only a tie score. And from this point, things aren't looking good, but it's definitely not over, clearly, because the game is still tied, and the Mets still have some hope. Didn't do anything, nothing really happened in the bottom of the seventh, but in the bottom of the eighth, Juan Lagares comes up, and this is what Juan Lagares did.
Slowed down to left center. Back goes Harper deep in the gap, and it's out of here! Juan Lagares gives the Mets the lead. His fifth career home run. And it's 5-4 New York in the eighth.
And the Mets go up by one, and you start to have a little bit of hope. And the wind was blowing all game long. Pretty much from the left field in, it seemed like by looking at the flags, but everything that got in the air seemed to carry, as we would later find out as well. And that was Gary Cohen on the call on SNY, of course. And then ninth inning rolls around, and they're up by one, and they call upon Bobby Parnell, who is supposed to be the closer this season. And he pitched very well from the closer position last year before his injury. And to me, it didn't seem like Bobby Parnell fully recovered from his injury last year. And it was clear on Monday that he did not. Throughout the inning, Bobby Parnell is throwing fastballs in the upper 80s, where he usually is around the upper 90s with his fastball. You could just tell that the guy isn't healthy, and that something has to be done about it. The Mets managed that wrong. They shouldn't have brought him into the game or brought him back too soon, and that's what they did. And it's typical. They're notorious for that. Long story short, Bob Parnell blows the game, and now we're heading into extra innings. And the Mets bring in Familia, young arm, and he has a lot of potential. And he comes in and he starts walking the world. Can't find the strike zone. It's bad that a major league team, their bullpen, they can't find the strike zone. And then the Mets have to go to lefty veteran, Chaminade alum John Lannon, and I don't know if it was necessarily him being in the wrong place at the right time, or him facing the wrong hitter, or what. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't necessarily blame him for what occurs next, but John Lannon gives up this absolute bomb, and this, my friends, was the dagger.
First and third, 2 outs. Rendon, that's a loud noise to left field. It is flying. See you later. 3-run homer, Anthony Rendon. And a 4-run 10th for the Nats. And a whole bunch of fans just did a 180 and headed out of here.
And that is all she wrote, folks. David Wright showed a little bit of a fight with a homer, but the final score 9-7. The Mets fall 0-1 to start off the season, and they fall to 34-19 all time on opening day. And it's not even April, and the Mets are in mid-season form with finding a way to lose games. And that's how it was on opening day. It wasn't even April yet. But after this, I will get into the rest of the week that the Mets had back after this. I'm just a Mets fan and life is a nightmare. I'm Matt O'Leary and it is 1:18 here in Dix Hills, and you are listening to This Week in Sports on WFTU Riverhead. Like I said before, it wasn't even April yet, and the Mets are in mid-season form. Unacceptable. This team has not had a good bullpen ever since I watched the team. Okay, that's a little bit of a stretch, but they only had really one solid bullpen, and that was in the 2006 season, the dream team, as I refer to. But that was previously, I should say, to Duaner Sanchez's injury, and then their bullpen seemed to go downhill, and not re-signing guys like Chad Bradford, and then overusing guys like Feliciano, and then bringing in Brian Stokes. That seemed to add to the 07-08 collapse, and then the debacle from 2009 up until now. And I think that Bobby Parnell should just have his surgery right now. Just get it over with. The Mets originally it was 2 weeks. Now it's 6 weeks. What's going to happen is they're just going to wait and wait and wait like they always do, and he's going to need surgery. Everyone knows it. You don't have to watch baseball to know that he's going to need surgery. But nope, Mets logic. Let's just wait it out 6 weeks. It's ridiculous. The one thing I am happy with, though, Eric Young Jr. and Juan Lagares are in the lineup every day. And that is the 1-2 punch that I like at the top of the order. I would like to see the Mets lineup being, for every day, Eric Young Jr. leading off, Juan Lagares hitting second, Murphy third, David Wright fourth, Granderson 5, and I went with Ike Davis playing first base over Lucas Duda. Personally, I just think that Ike Davis is the better fit right now, especially defensively. Duda, they both really have too many strikeouts, but Duda is, can't stand that guy. Catcher, Travis d'Arnaud, and then, of course, Ruben Tejada hitting 8th, and then the pitcher spot 9th. Surprisingly, Tejada has played quite well. Had a few hits in the first week, and everyone bashed him throughout the offseason and throughout last season as well. But the Mets didn't really make any moves for a shortstop. Everyone, including myself, was calling for the Mets to sign Stephen Drew. Hasn't happened. And the only really other option that they have is Omar Quintanilla. And that guy, if Tejada's not a major league shortstop, Omar Quintanilla is definitely not a major league shortstop. And, of course, Wilmer Flores. But he's really more of a third baseman. And obviously you're not going to move right out of the third base spot. But even when Chris Young is back and healthy, I would highly consider moving Daniel Murphy back to first base and letting Eric Young Jr. be the everyday second baseman, and then just either trade Ike Davis or Lucas Duda, or both. It's good to have one of those guys to come off the bench. I would say either Ike Davis or Lucas Duda. But I just can't sit and watch strikeout after strikeout from the first base position. Ike Davis hit 31 home runs not long ago. And it's just with all the Valley fever and the weird injury in Colorado, his career has gotten off to a very weird start. And that's the kind of guy who, with a change, could develop into a very nice player. But I just don't see it fitting right now and working out with the Mets. And Lucas Duda, really, I think he doesn't really have a position in the field. So he could come off the bench on a team like the Mets. He's a good pinch hitter in late inning situations, or he could be a DH on a American League team. Obviously a kind of junky American League team. But I think that gives the Mets their best lineup is to have both Eric Young Jr. and Juan Lagares in the lineup, because Juan Lagares' defense is too valuable to not have him playing center field every single day. And surprisingly, this is Murphy's 7th season with the Mets already. Came up in 2008, and it's went quick. And he's played just about everywhere, but he was best defensively at first base compared to second and even the outfield. The moral of the story with the Mets season thus far is they got swept. They look bad. Just awful. But we're going to find the lighter side of things with the New York Mets. And I want to talk about a funny point that no one really thought about until they actually saw it happen the other night. Bartolo Colon isn't necessarily a guy that's in great shape, unless you consider round the shape. He's an M&M away from 285 pounds on the hill, and you think of him as, how does a big guy like that pitch all the time? But you forget, now that he's in the National League, he has to hit. And his first at-bat was quite comical. He was way out in front, broken bat, dribbler, and it wasn't good. But he was a guy who played most of his career in the American League with the A's, the Angels, teams like that. But he did play half a season in the National League with the Montreal Expos in 2002, now the Washington Nationals. And that year he hit 133. Isn't necessarily a good thing. Not really good for a pitcher. And for someone that size, it's somewhat expected. But career-wise, he is hitting a 104. That's slugger status right there. It's bad. But speaking of guys like him, I did get to watch Sidney Ponson hit back in the 2008 season when he pitched for the New York Yankees, and they played against, they did a day-night doubleheader against the Mets. And he started the night game, which was played at the good old Shea Stadium. And that's a guy who, in 2003, with the San Francisco Giants, hit an .074. Then in 2006, with a small stint with the Cardinals, hit 231, which is much better. You can get by with that for a pitcher. Tommy Glavine used to hit in the 240s. Johan Santana used to hit in the 240s. They're guys who are respectable pitchers. Hitting pitchers, I should say. But Sidney Ponsone's career batting average was a 138. So very similar numbers for those two pitchers who shared similar stats. They had a similar style. The moral of that story is the big pitchers can't hit. And we're going to make a little bit of a transition back to some New York Yankees baseball after this break. I will be back after this. Those Yanks are back, and they did not look so hot on their opening day in Houston. The much slimmer CC Sabathia got the start, and he did not look so hot. Gave up 6 runs over 6, I believe. Definitely went 6 innings, and it was not a quality start from CC Sabathia. For the most part, I think he is finished career-wise. Last season, an off year as well. He's the kind of pitcher that throws a ton of innings, and I think it's catching up to him now at this point in his career at a later age and so many innings under his belt. Back in 2008, they said that the Brewers overused him on their run to the playoffs, and that could have definitely been the case, and that could be factoring in right now. And then, of course, he went to the Yankees in 2009, and they won the World Series. And he was pretty successful with the Yankees early on in his tenure there in New York. But now, seems to be winding down, and that happens sometimes with the lefties. He's getting older. A guy like, I don't know, comparison maybe like a David Wells. Not sure. But there is one stat from this series that really stands out to me, very much so. The Yankees this offseason made a big splash in the free agency and signed, everyone knows, Tanaka. For the next 7 years, he's due to make $155 million. And that's more than the entire Houston Astros roster will make for over the next 3 years. Their payroll is just a measly $45 million. They're at the bottom of the standings every year, and they are dead last in payroll in the major leagues. And you think, how could a team like that compete with a team with the payroll like that the Yankees have? And it ended up that they got 2 wins in the series. They won the series. That's surprising to me. The Yankees do come out flat to start the year, this year, and in the past. Last year they started out 0-2. Although, it's not time to fret yet, Yankee fans. One time, not too long ago, the Yankees started out 0-3. And the year was 1998. And if you're a Yankee fan, you most likely know, if you're old enough, that you ended up beating the San Diego Padres for your second World Series title in a 3-year span. So, don't jump off ship yet, is my only advice. But my prediction for the Yankees this year, I think they will be a wild card team. I don't think they're going to win the division. But 90 wins, wild card team. And then that's where the magic happens. I'm calling it. I've said it before. And then the amazing run led by Jeets, going out on top. World Series champ. It just makes sense to me. I don't know who they're going to end up playing. I don't have a prediction for the other wild card team or really the other division winners in the American League. But I could just see a classic Yankees-Dodgers World Series. Something like that makes sense to me. And Yankees in 6. in that series. So that's my World Series prediction. I guess just get that out of the way in the first week of the year. Why not? But 90 wins, like I said, and then the amazing run by Derek Jeter is what I'm calling. And for those crosstown Metropolitans, I'm calling a 78 win season. That would be put them at 78 wins, 84 losses, 6 games under 500. That would definitely be somewhat of an improvement, but that will fall short, 12 wins short of the Sandy Alderson prediction of 90 wins, which I think is just, it wasn't more of a prediction, it was more of a goal, I should say. He came out and said that he wasn't, when the news got out there that he said 90 wins, that it wasn't a prediction, that it was actually more of a goal than a prediction. And it just doesn't seem like a logical goal. I would say a good goal and a reasonable goal would be breaking 500, which is maybe 81 wins, and I had them falling just short. But even now, they look way, way under that. I don't think they're... I predicted 78, but I don't even know if they're going to get to that. They don't look good whatsoever. Hopefully, they swing into things a little bit. But, I don't know. That's going to be it on baseball for this week's show. We're going to transition, talk a little bit about the New York Jets. When I was gone, the Jets signed Michael Vick, and the Eagles signed Mark Sanchez. So the teams basically swap quarterbacks in that one. And I was not a fan of this move from the get-go. One, I knew they had to release Mark Sanchez from the Jets' standpoint, but as a fan, I didn't want to see it to happen. Surprisingly, because many Jet fans are not a fan of Mark Sanchez, but I don't put the blame on him. Like I've said before, I blame the 3 offensive coordinator changes in 3 years. I blame the poor offensive line, the lack of weapons around him. And I just don't think Michael Vick is the right fit, because he's going to give Geno a run for his money at the starting job. And if he outplays Geno Smith in the preseason, they might be forced to give Vick the starting job, and that's just going to regress the team even more. Because now those back-to-back AFC Championship games are so far in the past, and the cutting of Mark Sanchez symbolizes the end of that era. And the Jets decided to bring Rex Ryan back for this season, which I'm definitely a fan of. I've always been a Rex Ryan supporter. But it seems as if his era that he had of the great Jets defense, led by the young gun Mark Sanchez, rookie quarterback, gunslinger, who's going to throw some interceptions, but has 4 playoff wins in 2 years. It's over. And if they go with Michael Vick to start, it's just going to be like putting a Band-Aid on. It's not going to heal anything. It's just temporary. Maybe they get a couple good seasons left out of Vick, but even if Geno wins the job and he becomes the backup, Vick becomes the backup, I don't think he's going to be a good mentor for Geno Smith, because I think he will teach him to run first, pass second. Throughout Vick's career with the Falcons, he definitely was a scrambling quarterback. And with Geno Smith, he has run a little bit last season, but I wouldn't classify him as a scrambling quarterback, and I don't want him to turn into a scrambling quarterback because that leads to injury. Vick can't stay on the field because he gets injured because he scrambles, takes a shot to the ribs, and then he's missing weeks. And your offense really can't get in sync then, because you're switching your quarterback up on a week-to-week basis, and it doesn't make sense. It's just, that's a typical Jets move, I think. Not a fan of this signing. And the Jets chose not to sign Deshaun Jackson, who was released by the Philadelphia Eagles as well. I think that was a very smart move. I will give them credit on that one. I was saying all along, you have to stay away from Deshaun Jackson. He's trouble off the field. They were saying that he has gang relations, and the Jets just got rid of Santonio Holmes, who they're pretty much the same player for the most part. They both wore number 10, ironically. Both short, speedy slot receivers, and it would have been getting the same thing. And I think that they were smart in not signing Deshaun Jackson. He ended up going to the Eagles' rivals, the Washington Redskins, and he will have RG3 throwing to him, and I don't know how good of a fit that's going to be either, but we'll have to see how that plays out. It seems the Titans are going to make running back Chris Johnson available, and the Jets have shown interest, it seems. And I like the running backs the Jets have right now, but Johnson would definitely be an upgrade. I think that they had a pretty nice tandem of Ivory and Bilal Powell. Bilal Powell was drafted out of Louisville, and he showed a lot of potential, and he really seemed to develop in the past 2 seasons. It's kind of like running back by committee, using both Powell and Ivory. Ivory had a phenomenal game against the Saints, his former team. But they also had Goodson from the Raiders last year. Didn't get much playing time, was suspended, then injured. And he's another guy. He'll be coming back this year. He could fit into the mix well, too, I think. But what all I have to say is Chris Johnson is definitely an upgrade from what the Jets have, and I think that they should show interest. And if they can get him for the right price, might as well bring him in, because there's no question that the Jets need weapons at the key positions. It's been a long time since the Jets have sent a player to the Pro Bowl from one of the core positions: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. There's no questions that they have a good defense, but the quarterback situation hasn't been good. I just defended Mark Sanchez, but I'm not comparing him to Joe Namath. I mean, he got the job done for the most part. Wide receivers has been a mess. They just signed Eric Decker, who, with Peyton Manning, had a very nice career so far. And even when Tim Tebow was a quarterback in Denver, he had a pretty nice season as well. In the past, they've had to... they've pretty much mixed and matched. Some of the core guys for the last few seasons were Jeremy Curley, of course. Stephen Hill, who really... They drafted him out of Georgia Tech in the second round, has not turned into the player that they were expecting him to be. And tight end, of course, they had Dustin Keller. Let him go. He went to the Dolphins last year. Didn't really play because season-ending injury in the knee. I'm pretty sure MCL. It was either MCL or ACL, but I'm pretty sure it was MCL. Tore it on a low hit that was somewhat questionable. Might have even drew a fine from Roger Goodell, because he hands out fines like it's his job. And it's already known that the Titans have released Chris Johnson, so he is available now. That one via text message. I just got that one a couple minutes back. But I do think that the Jets should look into signing Chris Johnson. We're going to make a little transition here. We're going to talk a little bit about the New York Rangers, because Martin St. Louis has finally scored a goal as a blue shirt. Took a while, took way too long, and I, for one, was not a fan of this trade when it happened. I've talked about it a couple times on my show. Martin St. Louis, of course, they got in the trade for Ryan Callahan. And Callahan has been playing great in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay looks like they're going to be good in the playoffs. And I just don't think that the Rangers are going to ever do anything with James Dolan leading this team. And same goes for the Knicks. The Knicks look like they're going to make the playoffs now as the 8th seed. And with all their struggles this year, it's kind of hard to imagine that they're going to make the playoffs, and they're either going to play the Heat or the Pacers. Granted, I don't think they're going to get out of the first round, but if they make the playoffs, that might be the only thing that saves Mike Woodson's job. I don't think that he should be brought back as the coach. I've said this on my last show that I don't think Phil Jackson's going to be with the Knicks long term, and I definitely don't think he's going to be coaching. That's for sure. But after all that, can you imagine if the Knicks somehow find a way to make the playoffs as the 8th seed? That would be impressive. I'm going to take a quick break, but after this, I will recap the show and give a prediction for next week in baseball. Back after this. Alright, it is 1:50 here at WFTU. This is This Week in Sports, and I am, of course, Matt O'Leary. And we've talked Mets, we've talked Yankees, we even talked Jets, Rangers, and Knicks. But we can finish up the show with a little New York Islanders talk. I wasn't planning on talking about the Islanders this week, but we have a little more free time, so I'm going to end my show today about talking about the Islanders off the cuff. There's rumors that Wong is looking at offers for people to buy the team. And although he wanted to do the Lighthouse project and everything, the Islanders are forced to move to Brooklyn, play at the Barclays Center. And I think that's where he lost the fan base, having to move to Brooklyn. I mean, it's a million times better than moving to, say, Kansas City or something like that. But no one's really going to go out to the Barclays Center for a game. A fan like myself or a young person, just think, hey, what are you doing tonight? Let's go to the Islanders game. It's right here. It's right in Nassau County. Not a far drive for me at all. And you can't tailgate at the Barclays Center. And I'm a fan who likes to tailgate. I know a lot of people do. It's a popular thing now. But you got to take mass transit in order to get to the Barclays Center. Or you can pull an Evan Roberts and ride your bicycle. But I'm not going to ride my bike to Brooklyn. And I'm not going to take the train either. I'm going to be honest. The likelihood of me going to any Islanders games at the Barclays Center, very, very slim. And I think that a lot of fans are like that. Feel the same way. Especially the younger fans. Younger fans are more likely to drive to the Coliseum in Uniondale, just pay $10 to park, and then cook some burgers out in the parking lot for an hour or two before the game, and then just go in and enjoy a hockey game that you only paid maybe $10 for a ticket. And ticket prices are going to go sky high once they go to the Barclays Center, because then you can play the card, this is a new venue for us. And although the Nets have been there for a couple years now, it's still new. It still has that new appeal. And the Islanders certainly haven't played any regular season games there, so they're going to play that card for a couple years as well. But Wong taking off or looking into offers is a good sign for them. But I'm hoping that maybe the Wilpon family heard this so that they could possibly think about selling the team. And I know that is highly unlikely because the Wilpons love the New York Mets. They just have funny ways of showing it. The Wilpons business, it's definitely their favorite business, the New York Mets. Definitely not their most successful, but it is their favorite for sure. I certainly think they should be open to certain offers if they have any. Because the Wilpons are not running this team correctly. They've made decisions that have brought the team downhill. Certainly, obviously, invested wrong in Bernie Madoff, and now you don't have any money. Although they got the Mets a new ballpark, which is, I guess, a good thing. I, for one, preferred Shea Stadium, and I think a lot of fans miss Shea Stadium, but Citi Field is a nice ballpark, and over the years, they've made it more homey. Because when it first opened with the black walls and the green seats, it didn't feel like the Mets Stadium. Then they moved the fences in, which was a good thing. Painted the fence blue. The seats are still green, but there's more pictures of old Mets, and they named the bridge in right center field the Shea Bridge after Shea Stadium. And they did a nice job of, I think they did this last year, painting the floor like the speckled orange and blue mixed together, and I think that looks cool. They got the All-Star game to come to New York last year. It was all certainly good things, but money-wise, they just don't have the funds to spend like they used to. And if they really love the Mets, they should sell, because then the Mets will be able to succeed from there. Other than that, pretty much covered it all. Next week, you could expect to hear more about the Mets and their upcoming games. They're going to be home for a while. The Yankees' home opener is coming up on Monday. 1 o'clock on Monday, I believe, against the Baltimore Orioles. That the date on that is the 7th. Yep, 7th. And other than that, pretty much covered it with the Mets. Be talking about the Mets. The Jets, if they do sign Chris Johnson, hopefully they do. It'll give me something to talk about. Maybe the Giants make any moves. And we will talk about the Nets possibly clinching a playoff spot. Playoff hockey coming up, who the Rangers are going to end up playing. If the Knicks make the playoffs, all things, just not the Final Four, because it's April already. It's not March. March is over. It's not March Madness. Should be over by now. No one likes college basketball here anyway. But stay tuned for Andrew Acuna's Hot Stove. He comes on just after 2 o'clock. And I am excited to hear what he has to say about the start of the Yankees 2014 season. Thank you for listening today, and that is all I have for this show. Have a good weekend.
This is AM 1570, WFTU, Riverhead, New York.